Good afternoon, welcome to episode 4 of the Grad Cracker webinar series. Today we are joined by our good friends at Atkins, Neve, a Grad Cracker regular who's been with us on the Grad Cracker Insight in London and also on the last webinar, and graduates Ellie, Tom and Dan. Neve is the Early Careers Recruitment Advisor and will tell you all about what you need to know about the opportunities Atkins will have on offer and also the recruitment process. And grads Ellie, Tom and Dan will tell you all about their journeys so far at Atkins and what the future could have in store for you. So Neve, could you just give the students a bit of a background to who Atkins is?
Sure. So Atkins is a British multinational engineering, design, planning, architectural design, project management and consulting services company. We're a member of the SNC Lavalin Group, and Faithful and Gould also operates under our business. We have offices across the country and across the UK, from as far up as Aberdeen all the way down to Croydon and beyond. And we operate in quite a number of different business areas. So no matter what your interest is, there's something there for you. We operate across transportation, infrastructure, nuclear, ADS&T, which I have to remember the acronym. So it's aerospace, technology, all that kind of thing. And then of course we have our Faithful and Gould roles as well.
Fantastic, thanks Neve. And just so for reference, so Tom and Dan are both from Faithful and Gould, that business, and Ellie is from Atkins. So what I'm going to do now, just due to the success of this quick fire round, is I'm going to go through everybody to break the ice and get everybody to tell us a quick fire fact about Atkins. So Neve, I'm going to start with you.
Sure, okay, so Atkins have a fantastic network of internal communities on our Yammer platform, and you can have anything from the Women's Development Network through to neurodiversity, and also some other groups like, pop music, Cats of Atkins, Best Burgers of Atkins. So there's something there for everybody. But on a personal note, I really enjoyed interacting with my colleagues from all over the country in all different parts of the business, and it really gave me a sense of community during lockdown.
Thank you, Neve. And just for reference, so Yammer is like an intranet, Atkins specific.
That's it, yeah, Atkins specific internal portal.
Perfect, thank you, Neve. Ellie, on to you. Quick fact about Atkins.
Yeah, so mine is that we have a flexible hours policy. So as long as you do kind of core hours 10 till 3 and do your contracted hours, you can sort of work to what suits you, which is quite nice on a Friday afternoon to finish a little bit early. So
I bet everybody's off on a Friday afternoon, aren't they?
It's very quiet after 3, yeah.
I thought so. Tom, on to you.
Okay, so my fun fact about the company is that we have a lot of team social events in our team. So I've been here for less than a year now, but I've experienced wine tasting, pottery classes, rock climbing, and also we've played rounders after work as well. So a lot of fun activities out there for everyone.
Oh, see, with wine tasting, I'll be there in a dash. I would be there. Dan, on to you.
So mine's about Faithful and Gould specifically. We've got offices in over 50 countries across the world, and secondments to offices abroad are encouraged. And I'm sure Atkins have got even more offices worldwide as well.
Oh, is that in your future plans then, Dan, to go on secondment elsewhere?
It would be definitely part of what I want to do, yeah.
5-year plan, thinking ahead.
Don't go there yet. I'm coming there next. Don't steal my question, Carla.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I thought I better show up because this is going to be like Carla, error. Okay, thanks everybody for the quick fire round. So let's meet the grads in a little bit more detail. So Ellie, Tom and Dan, I'm going to start with you. Ellie again, could you just tell us about where you went to university and what did you study?
Yeah, so I went to Swansea University and I studied chemical engineering there. Fantastic.
And then what made you decide to join Atkins?
I think there's a few things. I really like the idea of working for a consultancy. I think it helps to kind of have the people side as well as your kind of technical engineering. And I think it's kind of a bit of a myth that engineers just want to work in a dark room by themselves. So it's quite nice to have that kind of dual side of a consultancy. And also definitely the people, when I went through kind of all the interview process, it was a really nice process, I think, from the recruitment, like early careers recruitment side, down to kind of the interview you have with your line manager. And in my case, it was with another grad as well. So it was a really kind of comfortable experience that brought me there. And then also just the scope of work, I think from kind of what Neve said there, you can tell we work in a huge range of kind of areas. So, you know, there is something for everyone, and whatever you're interested in, they really encourage you to get involved in.
Yeah, I think that's something, Ellie, about the people at Atkins. And I would say this if you guys were here, but me and Jess, have mentioned, you know, we've been to visit them in Birmingham, London, and I remember a couple of years ago it was their Birmingham team meeting. So there was me and little Jess just went to, and there must have been about 10, 15 of you there, Neve, and you know they just welcomed us with open arms. So definitely a really friendly bunch. We really enjoyed that meeting. Dan, on to you. So where you went to university and what did you study?
So I went to the University of Reading and studied environmental physics, which is essentially the sort of scientific background of climate change.
Thank you, Dan. And last but not least, Tom.
So I went to Imperial College London and I studied mechanical engineering.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Tom. And what we're going to do now is just tell you all a little bit more about our relationship with Atkins before we then go on to meet the grads in more detail. So I've mentioned about our relationship with Atkins over the last 10 years or so, which is a really close relationship. They've also been to the GradCracker headquarters up in York, where we've been out for a couple of cheeky pub sessions, but we didn't have any drinks, unfortunately, did we, Jess? We were very well behaved.
Nice pub lunch.
Nice pub lunch. The Atkins Insights are also on their hub, as is the previous webinar. So make sure you go and have a look after this webinar and do some research before you apply to their opportunities. Atkins also, drum roll Jessica, sponsors the GradCracker Toolkit, which this is the new edition for this year. So you can find the GradCracker Toolkit online because it's an ebook. I call flipping books, I'm old-fashioned. And you can also go to your career service and collect a hard copy. So Neve, back to you, my love. So when will you be opening your opportunities? So you open your placement and graduate opportunities on GradCracker, but give us a rough idea about timelines.
Sure, yeah, so it's all coming to a head. So next week we're going to go live. We always say commencing the week of. Yeah. So I think if people will log into our website next week, you'll see that all our roles are live there with, you know, great job descriptions, team descriptions, a few videos giving you insight to the roles, you know, that are available. It can be a bit overwhelming. There's so much choice out there. Yeah. So one of the great things when you pop onto our website next week, there'll be a chatbot role finder, and you can put in a bit about your background and what you're interested in, and it will bring you to a job that it thinks it will suit you. But I always suggest just get on the website, get researching, read it all. And the placements will open later in October. But again, it's quite a good opportunity once we go live with grad roles. Pop on and have a look at the grad roles because they're often mirrored in placements. Yeah. Of course, when placements open, then you'll know for definite what roles and what locations are available for you.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Neve. And like Neve said, so all of the graduate opportunities will be listed on GradCracker. So make sure you get ahead of the time. Make sure you go onto the Atkins Hub today and press follow, so then you will be alerted by email and push notification when they do open their graduate positions next week, and then obviously their placements in the autumn. So watch this space. Deadlines and things like that, Neve, have you got any idea about when the deadlines are going to be for both of those?
So deadlines, I always think if you're working towards a deadline, you're a bit slow, like you're behind the curve. Yeah. Don't think of that end date, think of the opening date. Yeah. It's so important to apply in a timely manner, particularly if the role you're interested in is really popular, because if there is a lot of interest, we will close earlier, you know, than we're expecting. I believe this year our roles will close for application in November, but of course there's always exceptions to the rule, and it very much depends on the location and the role type. So I always say, you know, get the application in as soon as possible so you can enjoy the rest of your first term. There's no point having it hanging over you as you come towards, you know, perhaps getting essays in, or, you know, tutorials, or, you know, all the hard work starting. So the main thing is don't focus on the closing date, focus on the opening date.
Yeah, definitely. And I think me and Jess will agree with that entirely. Yeah. So don't wait until the deadline. You know, these roles will close as soon as Atkins has had enough good quality applications. And we're seeing thousands and thousands of visitors to GradCracker every single day. So get your applications in as soon as they open. was going to say PDQ, pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
So from, I know all the grads use GradCracker extensively when they were applying to their opportunities. What we like to do as part of these webinars is really give some helpful hints and tips to the audience, you know, who are watching this webinar, about how you as grads utilise GradCracker to find that perfect opportunity and to thoroughly research Atkins as an employer. So Ellie, I'm gonna come to you now. How did you use GradCracker? What hints and tips could you give a student who, you know, we've got hundreds of opportunities, thousands of opportunities, hundreds of employers. How did you utilise the website to help with your job search?
Yeah, I think one of the first ways that's really great that GradCracker has is the fact you can kind of filter down to your degree area. So particularly if you're quite open to different kind of sectors or jobs, that's a really good way to not have to kind of go through each one yourself and spend a lot of time finding which ones you can apply for. And I think another feature I used a lot, I know you've said there about don't focus too much on closing dates, but I know that GradCracker's advertisements kind of really highlight the closing dates, because I think often you can spend a long time on each application, like sometimes sort of up to a week or even more. And I used to take the questions off and put them on a Word document to kind of work on them and edit them. So I think if you're not working on the website, sometimes you can kind of lose visibility of how long have I got left, or, you know, when is this due? And I don't think there's anything worse than spending kind of weeks doing something and going on and it's actually expired. So definitely kind of just be aware of that. Keep kind of a tracker, whether it's in like an Excel spreadsheet or just on a post-it note or whatever works best for you, but keep a track of what you're applying for and when it's due so that you can prioritize, because most of us will be applying for more than one. So I think that's a really good way to keep on top of it.
Yeah, definitely. And we've kind of geared up GradCracker as well, because we listen to our students, you know, we listen to our graduates, and this is why the students can save the jobs to shortlist as well and track their way through the applications. And I know I've had many a phone call from a student ringing in and saying, oh, you know, Carla, I did apply to that job and I can't remember what the job description said. So this is why you save your jobs to your job diary, and then you can go back, like Ellie said, and just remember the key points when you do go to the interview stage.
On there as well, it actually counts you down how many days you've got to that deadline. So like Neve said, don't leave it till you've got 1 day left, leave it till you've got, you know, a couple of hundred left, so it gives you plenty of time.
Cool.
Definitely, yeah.
Thanks very much, Ellie. Jess, I'm going on to you now.
Yes, you are roles.
You're not having a nap, love. We're doing a live webinar.
No, I was thinking I just want to screen share and tell you all how to do it. But anyway, everyone that's listening now will all be registered. Yeah, I'm going to have my mum moan now.
Go on then.
So after this session, make sure you go onto your dashboard and use these features, because I promise you they'll help you in the long run. So yeah, get following Atkins and save all the jobs. Right, anyway, let's go on to talk about roles. Ellie, I'm going to come to you first again, if that's okay, just because you are top of my list. Can you just tell me about your current role and what life is looking like for you at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm a graduate systems engineer and I sit within the ADS&T practice that Neve said, which is aerospace, defence, security and technology, so a bit of a mouthful. I work predominantly in defence at the moment, so I'm working on 2 projects that are both defence-based, which is a really interesting industry and not necessarily one that I thought I'd end up in uni, but so it's quite a learning curve, but definitely really interesting, and I'd say everyone kind of be open to it, because I didn't necessarily know that's somewhere that, you know, there'd be opportunities, but I think, as I said, that's a great thing about Atkins. So yeah.
Who's some of your clients, Ellie, then? Do you deal with like the armed forces? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so our main client is the Ministry of Defence, so that can be anywhere from kind of Navy, Army, Royal Air Force, or like now they've got a Defence Digital, so like more cyber, and Space Command is a kind of growing area as well. Most of our projects are kind of cyber and land at the moment, although we do quite a few submarine projects, which I'd quite like to work on in the future. But yeah, at the moment I'm predominantly land based, so kind of working with the Army, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So do you get to choose? Have you finished dying, Jess?
Sorry, yeah.
I thought it's because of the excitement. So do you get to choose? So you mentioned that you're on land at the moment. So then do you get to choose if you can go on to like submarines and everything else, or is it just based on what projects come up?
It's sort of a mix of both. So you can definitely put a preference to a line manager, and then they'll kind of make sure they speak to the resourcing people to say when something, for example, in submarines come up, Ellie is interested in it. But obviously it's kind of the time as well. So it might not be as soon as you start, you might have to wait 6 months for that sort of project to become available, but you can definitely kind of register your interest in areas.
That's good. And when you say submarine or marine or, you know, whatever, like that kind of project, what would a project like that entail?
So it can be really, really broad. So kind of it can be from anything from sort of designing the steps to a submarine. That's what one of my colleagues is doing at the moment. So he's doing kind of AutoCAD drawings of the steps of a submarine, or it could be kind of more stakeholder side. So you're working with the end user to find out like requirements, what do you need from this? That's sort of more what I've done within systems engineering. So it's kind of, yeah, it can be across the life cycle of a lot of different kind of areas. So quite hard to pinpoint one thing.
Yeah, and do you know what, to me that's the really appealing side of it, that it could be any element, you know, across the project, across a, you know, life cycle of a product or whatever. And to me that must be really exciting to know that it could take you in any direction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think then you can suit it to your skills. Like if you are someone that wants to be more client facing and have a bit more interaction, you can get involved in that. Or if you do prefer to do more the calculations or the design side, you can stay a bit more that side. So it keeps it quite open to what you prefer.
And at the moment, would you say you prefer to be more client facing or behind the scenes?
I do prefer the client side, which I wouldn't have necessarily thought before, because I always thought I was a little bit more of an introvert, but actually I think I get quite a lot of kind of energy from having those client interactions in the workshops, and it kind of can help you understand the end result of what you're working on, which I think is really motivating.
I can imagine that also helps you with the design, or, you know, with the relationship with what you're doing, because you're understanding where it's going, who it's going to, and exactly what they want. So yeah, very interesting, Ellie. I like it. Tom, I'm going to come to you next. If you could just tell me a bit about your current role and what you're doing.
Okay, so I'm in the Faithful and Gold Consult team. We used to be called Strategic Asset Management, but this year we rebranded as the Consult team. I'm a graduate consultant there. What I mainly work on is life cycle costing and life cycle carbon analysis. What those two terms generally mean is we try to quantify the amount of money and the amount of related carbon emission from a project. So that's what we usually do. And we also do some asset management projects as well. So the asset management here doesn't necessarily refer to investment as some people might commonly think. What we refer here is about actually management of physical assets for clients. For example, we've been working on some railway projects. They have like a lot of assets in their different stations, and we help them develop a strategy to help them efficiently manage all of their assets.
Gosh, that seems like quite a range already, you know, of opportunities and everything you've got to get your head around in one job. In terms of that element side, do you prefer the asset management side or more the consultancy side of, you know, looking at your carbon footprint and, you know, reducing that? Which side do you prefer?
Well, this is only my first year in, so I can't give you an exact answer. Well, honestly, I like all of them. So so hopefully in the future I can still have, you know, more opportunities to be exposed in both of them, and then I can finally decide. And just to add on to some point is that there's a lot of client facing, not of these two aspects of our work, which is also why I went for this role. So as mentioned earlier, I come from an engineering background, but I always wanted my job to be a more interactive and to talk to people. So which is also why I really enjoy the work that I'm doing.
And you're still obviously enjoying it. You're not thinking, oh no, I changed my mind. I want to go back. I want to go back and hide behind the scenes.
No, not yet, at least.
Not yet. No, I'm sure you won't. You come across great. Dan, coming to you next. So yeah, a bit about, same question, a bit about your role and what you've been up to.
So like Tom, I'm a graduate consultant sat in the consult team at Faithful and Gould. I sit in the sustainability of the pillar of the team. So the majority of my work is on carbon and energy reduction strategies. We do a lot of work for clients who are sort of trying to achieve their net zero goals and sort of heat decarbonisation plans as well. And in addition to that, I do a fair bit of work on sustainability certification schemes as well.
So by the sounds of it then, with your, you know, what you studied as part of your degree, you always knew that this was something that you wanted to do, you know, as a career.
Yeah.
It's nice that obviously you found that and you can do that within Atkins, which is fantastic. What would you say, if you learned anything dramatic doing this job? Is there, you know, are we on track? This is a bit of a big question, but I can imagine like you know, you can find it quite rewarding turning situations around and thinking, you know, you're actually doing such a positive job every day.
Yeah, it can be quite a mammoth task, especially when you're sort of developing strategies that are, you know, looking at the next 30 years maybe. So a lot of our work is for sort of large public sector organizations. So we work, like, I think the biggest one to date in the team is the Ministry of Justice, which is the second largest organization in government. So yeah, there's quite sort of staggering figures in terms of what needs to be done in terms of carbon and energy reductions, and then the costs associated with that as well. So yeah, it's quite a hit to take when you're giving them these large figures in order to reduce their carbon.
And you don't get disheartened with it?
I don't get the what, sorry?
You don't get disheartened with it?
No, I've always wanted to
we're going to be all right. You're going to save us, aren't you, Dan?
Yeah, we're saving the world one day at a time.
You've got the whole weight of the world on your shoulders, but Dan's going to save us, I'm sure you will. Niamh, going to come to you. Just want to talk about, you know, again, when I'm speaking to students, I always really promote the work that you guys do, and especially the work that you do, Niamh, as part of your team, because I know that as you're part of your graduate programs and your placements, you offer a really good support network. As you've mentioned, you know, the groups outside of work that you guys offer, but you've got your graduate programs and the whole recruitment process down to a T. So could you just kind of let the audience know a bit about the support and training that you offer in the first kind of, maybe first part of the year, or the first kind of elements of the graduate program and how it works?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really, really important with the graduates that come to us, that early careers, that you're being supported to be the best that you can be, to do the job that you've come to do. And we have people who've never had a job before who start with us. We have other people who might have actually worked in industry for a while, gone back to do a master's, and are now coming into the working world. So the first thing I would say is that our graduate program is incredibly flexible. It's not a case of you get on the conveyor belt and, you know, we spit you out at the end and you're all carbon copies of each other. So the learning and development and the support that you have can be very much tailored to what you need. But even before you've officially, you know, signed the paperwork and you're sitting in an office, even before that, we have a number of support systems in place to help you gear up to get ready to work with us. So we have a buddy scheme. So that means once you've been made your offer, we can assign somebody to you. They're usually based in your office. They're based on your team. They can, you know, give you a bit of insight to the projects that they're working on, or they could even have a chat with you, and it could be something as simple as, where do I park my bike the first day I get to the office, or what's the best place to get a cup of coffee, you know. And then we also have a fantastic app called Connector, and this has been really great for onboarding candidates from a social perspective, but also learning a bit more about our culture and about what we do. So there's modules that you can do before you join us so that you're in the right headspace when you join. And then within the graduate scheme itself, so, you know, we take people from like multidisciplinary backgrounds and into such a wide variety of roles. So the learning support can be quite different depending on what you need and what you're looking for. So obviously with some roles, there'll be a route to chartership, and, you know, they'll support you financially with that, but also by giving you all the exposure you need to different competencies. But then there's also things like business specific learning. So to do your job, you might need to use a really business specific software, or you have to know like what's the industry standards for what you're doing. And then there's also bespoke learning. So a part of that is maybe identifying what you want to develop. So whether that's you come to us and you know that you're going to stick in a technical role and we can develop you on that technical side, or it could be you come to us and it's something as, you know, simple as public speaking, you want a bit of help with that, or to be client facing. So the supports are really wide varied in terms of the social aspect, unofficial, behind the scenes, and then the official, you know, learning and development. development we have is fantastic as well. And then once you're in the business, you have that network of new graduates, and that's where you find out all the need to know and you build your network. So there's a lot of support, and we like to support the individual holistically.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, can any of you guys add to that? Is any experiences you've had in terms of the sport or training that's really helped you progress in the first kind of elements of the program?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So in order to get my accreditation and chartership that I'm sort of progressing to work towards, Faithful and Gould have funded me to do a part-time master's in renewable energy. So obviously it's great to see that they've got that level of investment in me as a graduate, and are looking to sort of help with progressing my career in order to align with what I want to be working in. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
How does that work then, Dan, with splitting your time between doing your masters and then doing your day job? Do you have to manage that yourselves? Because I think students watching this webinar will think, okay, well, I want to do that as well, but how do I manage my time? So tell us a little bit more about that.
So yeah, it can be difficult in terms of time management. The way my university structures it is that you do a whole module in a week, and then I think you have 8 weeks to do the assessments. So you just got to be really sort of efficient with looking at when you're working. I have conversations with my manager as well to make sure that my workload in the weeks where I've got an assignment isn't sort of overly stressful, so I can balance out my time and I'm not like working any additional hours at work. Like it does require work in the evenings and the weekends, obviously, but yeah, it's something that I'm interested in. So when I'm doing the work, it's not like a massive chore or anything. It's actively interesting. So yeah, but the company are great with supporting me in terms of sort of well-being, of not being overworked.
Yeah,
I guess as well, you can apply it to what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis, can't you? It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
In the previous
the
bachelor's without doing it alongside work is a different game, isn't it? But now you can apply it to what you're doing on a daily basis. I guess it helps.
Yeah, so I'm a year in and I've obviously done a third of the course, and I've already been able to apply things that I've learned on the course into sort of everyday work life, and then I'm also able to sort of share what I've learned at university with my colleagues as well. Yeah. So it's really useful.
Yeah, that's a win-win all round, isn't it? It's win for the company and a win for you as an individual. So that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Ellie,
exactly.
Tom, have you got anything to add to that? Don't worry if you don't. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but just a nice second what Neve said, really.
Yeah, I'd just reiterate her point of it's really tailored. I think even within the other graduates that are doing the exact same role as me will have really different kind of development journeys. So it's like you have a very close relationship with your line manager, and they are very much your first point of contact to say, this is where I feel I'm lacking, or this is where I'd like to get more skills. And that's completely kind of driven by you, which I think is nice because we do all have different areas we want to go towards and work in. So yeah, I think it's nice to have that rather than kind of a one size fits all training route for all of the graduates. They definitely tailor it.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great, Ellie. Thank you.
Just think about training development then as well. So is it all one-to-one? So if you mentioned you want a soft skill, I think you mentioned, Dan, about public speaking, or Neve, somebody mentioned about public speaking. Are these things done on a one-on-one basis, or are you in groups so you can kind of bond with your peers as well? I don't know who that question's to, but whoever has got an answer.
So in the sort of 18 months that I've been here, majority of my training has been virtual because of obviously due to COVID. So it's been sort of online courses, which are in some cases like a video on the sort of internal learning area of our website. And then you can also choose to do sort of external training as well. And yeah, there's also sort of knowledge share sessions that are run where sort of grads will group together and someone will present about something they're doing. So that's a sort of group basis.
Oh, I'd like that, just so you can get to know what everybody else is doing as well.
Yeah,
it's a great way to sort of get to know what other people in the organisation are doing.
I think that's so important as well with an organisation as big as Atkins, because I think you could get siloed into your own little department. I know at GradCracker, we're really keen for everybody to know what everybody's doing, just because my role impacts on Jess's role and vice versa, and the web team and everything else. So it's nice that somebody like as big as Atkins also has similar mindset to that. I think are we going to go on to projects?
Projects, yeah. So next, Ellie, I'm going to come back to you because again, you're top of my list, my love. If you could just tell us a bit about some of the projects that you've been involved in so far, or maybe your favourite project you've been involved in so far.
Yeah, so as I said, my kind of 2 client projects I've been involved in since I started are both land defence. One of them sensitive, so I can't really talk about it, but the other one is called the CTTP. So it's the Collective Training Transformation Programme, where they're basically aiming to kind of upgrade how they train soldiers in the army. So they're looking to use kind of more virtual environments rather than just like land-based environments. So it's a really big project within the MOD, one of the kind of biggest funded ones in recent years. So it's a massive one, and I think that's been a big benefit for me because it's a really big team within the business. So I've got to come into a team where there's a lot of kind of senior individuals and really learn from them, which I think is kind of the best way to do it. And then on top of that, kind of external to client side work, I sit on our young professional forum in our area of the business as a volunteering coordinator. So that's something I'm quite personally interested in, and it's a really good opportunity so I kind of set up events for other young professionals to get involved in to do, because we have 2 corporate volunteering days a year we can use. So to help them kind of be able to use that and make it a bit easier. So yeah, that's quite a nice kind of internal initiative that I've been on.
Brilliant. And just to stick with that topic, what kind of events do you run? Is it just for people that are maybe on the grad programme, or can anyone join as well?
So at the moment it is just young professional based. So that's all our graduates, apprentices and year in industry students. So we've got one coming up in October actually, which is volunteering at a youth centre in Bristol. So we just go for the day. We're going to do some painting and gardening, and it's kind of a really nice way to do some socialising after COVID, because I know for me personally I started in lockdown, so I think it's been quite a slow burner to get to know people. So I think now we can do a bit more. Being able to go out and set those things up is really good for both the kind of volunteering side and the networking side, definitely.
Do you feel as though you've been at a disadvantage joining a company in lockdown? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I think I would say it is. Yeah, I think it's been more difficult. I think you touched on it earlier, Carla, with even going back into the office, you kind of want the more senior people going back in as well to learn from them. And I know that there are loads of advantages to working from home, so it's a slow journey, and I think it has been harder, but I think Atkins has been conscious of that. And we have a lot of things set up, like we have coffee breaks every week with our other grads, so it's just a half an hour session where we don't talk about work, you just kind of talk about anything that you would, like if you were to go to make a tea in the office, that sort of conversation. And I think things like that are really important, because it is harder to kind of make those relationships that you would in the office. So yeah, I think it is more difficult, but it's about being conscious of the ways you can reach out to people. And I think like I said earlier, everyone at Atkins is so friendly that being confident and saying, oh, can I have a chat, people say yes, and you get a lot out of it.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, we don't know what the future holds. Fingers crossed we don't have to go back ever into a lockdown. But if you were to give anyone advice, as any students that are listening now, what have you learned doing this kind of working from home experience? What advice would you give to a graduate that's thinking about applying now about working from home? Because I know you touched upon, almost pushing yourself a bit to reach out. Anything else that you did that kind of helped?
I think just look for other areas you can get involved in. So I know kind of particularly at Atkins, because we're project-based work, so you can get very stuck into just doing that. But I think a great way to meet other people is to sign up for other things. Like Neve said, even if it's just Yammer pages, just be active on other forums, because that's a great way to meet people outside of just your team. And I think that's what you'd have in the office, is you'd be meeting people that you wouldn't necessarily work with but would be in the office with you. So just kind of diversify yourself a bit. And I think most kind of the big companies, there's loads to get involved in, and you'll be able to find something that you're interested in. And particularly at Atkins, we've got loads of kind of different opportunities you can put your hand up for and meet new people.
I think that's the thing though, isn't it? I think some of our students will be sat at home now thinking, or sat in a halls or wherever thinking, oh, am I the only person who feels like this? But if you join these networking groups and everything else, then you can speak to like-minded people and share knowledge. You might be sat at home think with your own skill set, and get involved in these groups, get involved in these networks, and share your knowledge with the other people as well. I do think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, I'd just say as well, be vulnerable with your other grads. I think you join normally in a cohort, and I think you're all going through the same thing. You'll have the same worries, and they talk about imposter syndrome a lot. I think a lot of us go through that. So just be honest and speak up to each other. They're not your competition; they are your colleagues. So
yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
I like that. And as well, I think like what you just said, Carla, the students that are listening now, will probably feeling the same, even just being at university, say, for the first time, or being back on campus for the first time. They might be in the second year and it's the first time I've actually been on campus. We're at the moment, we're all going in this together, aren't we? So ask the questions, put yourself out there, join the groups. It's okay to say, I need help with this, or I've got a question. So yeah, it's a really good point. Tom, I'm going to come to you next. A favourite project you have experienced so far whilst being at Atkins?
Okay, so I think this should be my very first big project. So this was like after a month in. So my line manager gave me a project to help do, again, this thing I mentioned earlier, so do life cycle costing and life cycle carbon assessment on the residential development in London. So that project is still in progress. I'm not going to really talk in details about the names of the project and stuff, but it was a really fun experience, and I actually got to work with colleagues within our company from in different regions. So we have engineers from other parts in the UK, and we also work with other companies that were involved in the development as well. So working in these kind of big projects is a really good chance to network at the same time, because you get to work with these people, and at the very end, I actually get to present my findings to the client. So that was sort of my very first presentation. Joining the business, and it was done virtually, so it felt a bit weird, especially when you try to tell a joke but you can't see them laughing or any of them responding. But again, it's been a really interesting experience, and once you have done your very first project, you'll feel a lot easier moving on. So you're like passing the first milestone.
Oh, well done.
I will say that this is kind of a little bit of a message to our students. Tom just mentioned about presenting, and if you don't have your cameras on, I know we can't always have our cameras on, but if you don't have your cameras on, it's so hard for people like Tom to interact with you when you are presenting. So Jessica is going to be on campus virtually in October, November. So if you are on campus and you are being presented to by Jessica, put your cameras on, because she wants to see your little faces. And it's just so much easier, isn't it, Jess, if we can see smiling little faces behind the scenes.
It is. It does help though, Tom, doesn't it? Because like you say, sometimes you say stuff, you think, is anyone even out there?
Exactly.
We feel your pain.
Thanks, Carla.
We feel your pain, Tom.
I've got a session after this. Anyone from King's College London, after this session, I'm coming for you. So turn your cameras on. Be nice to see your faces. Thanks, Tom. That was good. And Dan, going to come to you next. Favorite projects so far.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm gonna go with my first one as well. So it was the end of my first week. I was put on the MOJ, Ministry of Justice Net Zero Carbon Roadmap project. This was the sort of first project of its kind that we'd had in the company. We'd never done an energy and carbon reduction strategy before. So it was a good basis to sort of set the benchmark of the level of detail and sort of caliber of work that we can produce. Obviously, with being such a big government department, and I think the project lasted about 8 months, with extensive sort of client contact throughout. We were able to get sort of more work following on from this first initial project, both looking at more specific projects from the MOJ, as well as that piece of work being shared with wider government departments, and then those departments coming to Atkins, Faithful and Gould in order to do the same sort of work for them.
And interesting how it's a mix of defence, isn't it? And I think that's it must be interesting to work with the different groups. I can imagine. How do you do this, right? Ellie, I was going to make this point to you earlier as well. Is it not a bit overwhelming? When you don't know of something about a particular industry and then you get landed on a project, what's the support that you get? Because what happens if you don't understand that whole defence sector, for example? How can you do your job properly if you don't understand the industry that you're working with? Like, what support do you get there to understand it? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that was definitely the case with me. I had no construction background whatsoever before I came into the sort of built environment industry. There are sort of a lot of acronyms that are thrown at you in meetings and things that that you don't know, but there's a great sort of support network. As we said, we've got buddies, but also you can talk to anyone else in the team about anything, and if they know the answer, I'm sure they'll help you. If not, they'll try to help you. So yeah, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I'd say just sort of in that sort of circumstance, make a note of what it is, and then either sort of use your own time to do a bit of research into what they mean, or just ask anyone and they'll help you out with it.
I think that's the thing, you've got to have a trust in your mentor and in yourself as well, that that they're not going to stick you on a project that and watch you drown, are they? So you're going to have that safety net, you're going to have people that have got your best interests and they're going to help you along the process. And I think this is a bit of a lesson to all of us, isn't it? It's all about asking questions and communicating, because there is people out there that want to help and can help you. So no, that's a really great point, so thanks, Dan. So next, I know we're going to kind of talk a bit about learning and development, aren't we? And I know we've kind of touched upon that a bit earlier, Carla, but I know you want to make a bit more of that.
Yeah, so what I really want to do, I know we've kind of covered off with Dan and Ellie about your learning and development that you've had previously. So Tom, I'm going to pick you up a bit on what you've just mentioned about having to do a presentation. And I know from a lot of our employers who advertise on GradCracker, part of the whole application process would be for the students or the graduates to do a presentation. Now, just give us, the students watching today, a little bit of advice on, how you steadied your nerves, how did you prep for the presentation? If it was in person, I know it wasn't, but if it was in person, would you give people slides? Just give us a bit of background about that and any helpful hints and tips to our students watching today.
Okay, I guess it'll be more helpful if I shared a bit of my experience during my interview as well, because there was also a presentation involved.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
So I just say, I guess most of the audience here will be trying to apply for job interviews soon. Yeah. And so for that presentation, make sure it's a topic that you're relatively familiar with. So for example, I had a chance to talk about actually my final year project and some of the challenges that I faced. So always pick something you're familiar with, so that at least subconsciously you'll feel easier. And and I know some people prefer to use scripts. I tend not to do that. You can have like note cards, or you can just remember some important phrases or sentences, but try not to write big paragraphs of scripts to memorize. Especially when nervous, you end up forgetting most of them. And in worse scenarios, you actually like recite them in a different sequence. That only make things worse. So just always try to be familiar. I think that's very important. And so when I did my presentation virtually, so that's what I did. I actually just wrote some very simple notes on my other screen, so I can refer to just in case I missed some of the points. And what else? And again, I guess virtually it's very different. So you don't really see the other person like face to face. You can't look them into the eye. What I would suggest is just look to the camera itself, and especially sometimes when doing a video interview as well, just always look at the camera instead of looking elsewhere. Otherwise, the interviewer might think you're reading a script as well. So just try to have more eye-to-eye contact whenever possible, and don't try to memorize stuff.
Yeah, definitely, I second that. And I think just make sure you're in a calm and quite a quiet environment as well. So for example, outside of my window, if I had my blind open, I've got chickens running all over and they just distract me. So I have to, every Thursday at 2:00, people, I've got 5 chickens out there, but I have to close my blind and everything else and really focus on what I'm doing. Otherwise it's really easy to get distracted, especially if you are me. So thank you, Tom, for those helpful hints and tips. So we all like to kind of Mystic Meg. Does everybody remember Mystic Meg? No.
I do.
Thanks, love. That just shows my age. So what we want to do now is just speak to Dan, Ellie and Tom about your futures. So what is in store for the future? You're kind of, I don't like 5-year plan, it's just too extreme, but next couple of months, next project or next rotation, what's in store for you?
Ellie, we're going to come to you first.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Sorry, I thought I said Dan.
Oh, did you say Dan?
I think so.
I'm happy to jump in. Sorry if I missed you.
No, sorry, Dan, you go first.
So I'm currently working on a decarbonisation plan for the Royal Borough of Greenwich. So we're looking at all of the sort of council-owned properties and looking at how we can decarbonise those. Deadlines looming for that, so it'll be all all hands on deck for that project for now. And then I'll be going away on leave, which will be nicely earned.
Oh, where are you going?
Just down to Cornwall.
Oh, nice.
Keeping it all internal this year.
Yeah, why not? Thanks so much for that, Dan. Ellie, on to you.
Yeah, I'd like to probably try a bit of a different domain, so move on from land defence into something a bit different, potentially even our sort of security and intelligence market or something like that. I'd quite like a little bit further down the line to get a bit of experience in project management as well. I think that's something that's really great about Atkins, is because we are that kind of like multidiscipline consultancy, you can get involved in different things like that, and that's something that aligns to my competencies for Chartership anyway, which is a more long-term goal. And then also a little bit further down the line is I'd like to get a bit more involved in the people side, so I'd like to become a line manager eventually, and things like that, to have a bit more of those softer kind of parts of the job as well.
Do you have to take a specific route then, Ellie, to become, you know, a line manager? So do you have to go a different route to be able to go down that way, or is it just everybody will become a line manager in the future?
Yep. So that's one nice thing about kind of starting at Atkins, is my line manager started on the graduate scheme 5 years ago. So she's not that much older than me. So I can really relate to her, and I feel like I can be very honest and things like that. So it's not kind of a different route for your general day job. It's just if you're kind of interested in that, then once you get kind of enough experience in the job, so I think normally kind of five years is the minimum, then you can kind of put your hand up and probably start with a few people and then grow to more people. So, but there's other steps in between. You can get involved in like the recruitment processes of doing interviews and things like that, and that's something they encourage us as grads to do. So for the early careers interviews, to sit in, so that, you know, for the kind of apprentices or graduates, you've got someone else young sat in the interview, and I think that can kind of put your nerves to rest a little bit as well. So that's kind of the journey there.
Oh, so watch this space, and people watching, you might see Ellie's face at the interview process. Go on,
you never know.
You keep putting your hand up.
Yeah, it was just because actually my colleague Hannah, who'll be watching this now, bless her life, I was actually asked her recently she's going to put it together, she's been doing it this week, is to almost explain how graduate programs work, you know. And you mentioned earlier, Ellie, about almost pitching to what almost placement you want to do next, or rotation you want to do next. And could you just explain to the audience on really how that works, and how in advance do you have to almost pitch for your next, you know, opportunity, and how really that works for your line manager and everyone else?
Yeah, so it can really vary. I think it's just to say to your line manager as early as possible. And I think it's really a case of it's who you know. So a lot of the times sort of projects can come in, or roles can become available, and it's kind of not a case of it necessarily going formally through resourcing. But if you know the project manager, or if you know the technical lead on there, they can be like, oh, I know Ellie's interested in this, let me pass it on to her. So we've got within my practice, you've got young professional development time. So that's 4 hours a week. You can do anything you want. And a lot of people use that to get involved in kind of areas that there might not be sort of project work at the moment, but that way they can get contacts in the area, they can start to know people and put their name out. And then when an opportunity becomes available, people know that they want to go into it. I think that happens quite a lot with aerospace, because we get a lot of aerospace students come in. So a lot of people want to go into those projects. So yeah, I think it's about saying it as early as possible, and kind of almost tell as many people as possible as well, because I think that's sort of the way you get there, and get there as quickly as possible.
So sometimes, by the sounds of it, then it's quite unofficial. There's not necessarily, all of a sudden, after this you switch and you go in here next. You know, it could be, you know, you could do literally the world is your oyster, as cheesy as it sounds, in terms of projects and where you could end up and who you could be working with.
Yeah, exactly. I'd completely agree on that. And I think it's very much a case of when you feel like you've got the maximum value out of what you're on at the moment, you kind of say, I'm ready to move on, and they put you onto something else. So it's very much driven by what you feel and how much you want, or what you want to kind of go into, definitely.
Interesting. So that particular opportunity, sorry, Cal, I know we're grilling you all now. So that particular project that you're working on now, you could say, I want to be on this particular opportunity for a month, or you could be doing this for 6 months. That's then up to you how long you want to be on that role for.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. And actually recently, a sort of a week-long opportunity came up that was quite different, and it was something I wanted to get involved in. So I sort of left my project for the week, went on to that, and then went back on. So it's very driven by you, and you can sort of, yeah, be very, they like to be very flexible with it so that you can get the most out of it as a graduate. So, you know, it might sound a bit intimidating to say, oh, you as a graduate would say, oh, I'm done on this project, I've got my most out of it. But, you know, no one ever takes it personally or is offended. It's, yeah, very much to make you the best sort of you can be.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really good. Sorry, Carla, you were going to ask something.
No, I was just going to say, how does the business manage that though, Ellie? So if that business area has, you know, 5 people working on that project, and then halfway through you say, well, actually, no, I've learned what I want to learn here, I want to move on. How does the business manage that, like with the workflow and staff moving about from department to department?
Yeah, so it's got to be a bit of a balance, I think. Obviously, to an extent, you can say I want to move on, but not necessarily tomorrow. So, you know, you might have to work out another month or say while they kind of resource the position, or it might be a case that they can split it between the remaining people on the project. So it can be a bit of a balance, but normally I think you will kind of come to the point where you feel like you've got the most out of it, and hopefully it will align quite well with a point in the project where maybe they're ready to kind of bring someone else on or let you go. And it can even be a case of, if you've got another grad who's working in an area, you could sort of discuss the fact you'd like to swap kind of projects and potentially try each other's roles, things like that. So, you know, it's not as easy as just being like, I want to go tomorrow, but it's a conversation with lots of people, and they'll do the best they can to kind of make it fit around you.
Oh, brilliant. Sounds great. Thank you, Ellie. And Tom, on to you. So future, I know you've only been at Atkins for nearly a year now. So what's in store for you moving forward? And have you got any plans for after your graduate programme ends?
Well, yes. So my first priority, of course, is to successfully finish my graduate program.
Yeah.
So that is usually 3 years for our team, and I think it might be different for other teams or other businesses across the company. But so just something I want to add to maybe Allie's point. Actually, I think the record in our team to be a line manager is actually 3 years. So he joined the company as a graduate 3 years ago, and now currently he is line managing our new graduate that is coming this year.
Oh, wow.
So
that's good.
So yeah, so definitely there's a target to work towards too, and of course, and also one criteria of successfully achieving the graduate program is to have a certain kind of chartership related to a role. So currently I'm pursuing the Institute of Asset Management Chartership. So there'll be some exams and studies to do in the future. But overall, that is sort of my midterm goal.
Yeah. And what does Chartership offer you, Tom? I know that a lot of students watching will be thinking, okay, so I hear about this Chartership, but when you do become chartered, what are the benefits? Why should students be striving towards Chartership in your opinion?
Well, of course, there are a lot of benefits. So first, you have a verified certificate association or someone that approves your knowledge. So I think that's very important, especially when you're presenting to clients. So I mean, usually they will know that you have this sort of background, and especially as as we do consulting work, this can be actually quite helpful for us. And also sometimes when we try to bid for work, it is also quite important to show the potential clients that we have this sort of qualification to support them and to help them. So that is also very important. And I mean, last but not least, a lot of these charterships are recognized worldwide. So in the future, if you want to, I don't know, succumb to another part of the world, or for example, you want to go to go to Asia, for example, and then I mean, this chartership is also recognized there, and it also helps you to explore a whole new world of opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. World of opportunity. We've heard that before, Jess, haven't we? GradCracker video used to be a world of opportunity. So, right, I'm just going to ask you this question off the hoof. If you could work, we've mentioned before that Atkins is an international company. If you could, this is going out to all of you. So, Tom, I'm going to you first, but Ellie and Dan, get prepared. If you could go to any other Atkins office worldwide, which office would you want to be seconded to? Tom.
Wow, that's a good question, actually. Okay, just right now at the top of my head, I'm quite interested to go to the Singapore office because I heard that Faith and Gold is responsible for the project management for their Formula One every year. So
yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone any Formula One fans here, but every time if you watch the live event, you actually see Photo and Go logo on the banners near the track.
Yeah.
So if I can be involved in those kind of projects, I think that would be quite interesting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Tom, I know you love working at Atkins, and I don't mean for you to go anywhere else but from Atkins, but we've got the Mercedes Formula One webinar in a couple of weeks, and it's a brilliant insight into Mercedes Formula One. So maybe you just want to tune in if you're a Formula One fan, tune in and watch that. So Ellie, on to you. So which country would you work in?
I'd probably go for San Francisco, just because I've always wanted to go and see the bridge. So yeah, I know we've got an office there. I'd probably opt for that one, although Australia would be a close second.
Yeah, definitely. I've got an interesting, I think the Golden Gate, isn't it about 1.5 miles long or 2 miles or something? I just think that's crazy time.
Yeah, it is massive.
It is massive. Dan, on to you.
So I was initially going to say Singapore, which Tom went for,
No,
and then I was
can't
going
have
to say
that one.
Australia, which Ellie went for. So I think I'm now going to go with South America. I've always wanted to go to South America. So
Any
I think we've
particular
got-
country?
Well, Patagonia sounds like an amazing place. I'm not sure we've actually got an office there,
No,
but
I was gonna say.
but
you could
There's
pop
always
across
time
to
to set one
there.
up.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'll do a little tour of the South America offices, maybe see if that can be done.
Dan, we mentioned earlier that you're saving the planet here, so you're now Superman. You can have an office wherever you want it.
Yeah, it just won't be flying there. Maybe I'll swim or something. Who knows?
I think Jessica's 5-year plan is to set up a Gradcracker office in the Maldives, isn't it, Jess?
Oh, that'd be nice, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So what we're going to do now, I was going to ask Neve these questions, but I think she's been having some internet issues. So I'm going to go back to you, Tom, because you are quite a recent joinee to Atkins. So the recruitment process, you mentioned about the interview and everything else. When you do apply to the Atkins roles through Gradcracker, just tell the students about your experiences. So what was the interview process, if you can remember? If you can't, I'm stumped. So try.
No, it's fine. I still do, fortunately. So
Good.
yeah. So well, again, to start with, I found the opportunity on Gradcracker. So I remember I think I remember that I can choose by region. So that's why so when I ticked London, so actually my team at that time appeared. So in one of the in many of the job opportunities under Atkins.
Yeah.
So that was why I applied. So I think I mean overall the first one would be an online assessment.
Yeah.
So there will be some sort of scenario based questions to just to test. I guess like they will be asking you like what happens if you're going to miss the deadlines, and then they give you some answers to choose from, and then after that there will be a telephone interview. I think yes,
Yeah.
a telephone interview, and if you pass the telephone interview, then it will be the assessment center. So for my assessment center, it was a 1-day event. So well, half-day event. Dan, was it half-day? Dan and I was in the same.
Oh, sorry, Tom. Come on, Dan, help him out.
Yeah, they split it across with I think 3 of us in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Then we did a sort of combined exercise with the 6 of us at midday.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had, I think it was an interview, a written task, and then a group task. I think those are the 3 parts to the assessment center process.
Yeah. And then how long was it before you found out that you were successful after the assessment center?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Within 2
it
weeks,
was yeah. The whole process for me was a pretty rapid turnaround. I think it was just over a month from apply to assessment center and get the job.
Quite quick then.
Yeah, they were definitely on it in that year with filling the spaces.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you Atkins grads. And Neve, I don't know where you are, but I know you're probably watching, tuned in from behind the scenes. So what we're going to do is just bring it to a close. Don't forget that Neve mentioned that the Atkins graduate opportunities will be open next week, and then look out for the placements, so it's summer and year-long placements at Atkins, which are opening up in October. So like Jess said, get yourself following Atkins after this webinar. Go and have a look at the Insight. Me and Jess had a right blast when we went to London, and watch the webinar from last year. A lot of the content is still relevant to this year. It was virtual last year, it's virtual this year as well. Kings, Jess is going to be with you in any short second, so make sure you have your cameras on, otherwise she's going to be absolutely livid. And don't forget that we are going to be back next Thursday at 2 o'clock. Next Thursday we are joined by SSE. SSE is one of the largest and diverse energy companies in the UK and Ireland. SSE will be opening up their graduate programmes today, so either get your applications in or follow and join us next week on the webinar. But for now, I'd like to say thank you very much to Atkins, and we will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.